Loves, I told you on Monday when I went live that I would come back live on Friday and that we would have a chat. And to be honest, I want to kind of do this. I want to bookend the week with you so that we're normalizing these conversations, so that we're having them on a regular basis. And I'm not quite at the point where I've built in enough structure that I can tell you when I'm going to live, although that would really help if I could do that. And I will get there. But I do want to make this a recurring thing, something that happens regularly, where we can sit down and jam. And hopefully, the more of you that know about it, the more conversations that we could be having in the comments. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to see them this time because sometimes Facebook holds out on me. So, if we haven't met before, I'm Serena Myers. Um, and I'm a Sacred Soul mentor. And in particular, I help recovering people pleasers get raw, real, and honest about what they truly feel, especially about uncomfortable emotions like anger. And today I am angry. I'm angry. And so I want to come and have a conversation about the events that happened this week. Um, and I'm not even 100% sure where to start. Like, I didn't even decide to like brush my hair and come on and present myself well with you here because I really wanted to be honest about what I'm feeling and what's going on right now. And in particular, I want to talk about the correlation between anger and our personal safety, especially as women, not only women, but especially as women. The events of this week have been really interestingly timed, both in like the bigger world perspective and also in my own little microcosm of the universe here. Um, I had a conversation with my spouse about the more open we are and the more public we get with our businesses and with how we just share ourselves with the world. How we also have to be mindful about our safety and how we conduct ourselves in the world and so on. And then I had something that happened today, which is really interesting. So I'm on the board for where I live, and I received solicitation from a company um, to try to get us to change property management companies. But there is nowhere publicly available that says that I am on the board and P.S. This is also where I live. If it had been addressed to me and sent to like the office of the property, well, that wouldn't have been too weird. Like they'd know that I was on the board, but not where I live. But somehow this organization has been able to find out my home. And the feeling that came up for me was that I'm wildly uncomfortable with this. Now, if you've been following my journey for the last like 4 or 5 months, or if you know me personally, you know that I'm doing a lot of work on embodiment of being able to be here, be present, and be within my body instead of existing from like the heart up or sometimes entirely checked out because of the trauma that I carry. The trauma that has been like really been revealed to me that has been directly causal of this separation that I've had to carry myself with. So the idea of being exposed to the world in this way makes me really wildly uncomfortable. Last night I went to bed thinking about the people, primarily Asian, primarily women, who lost their life this week. And while the person who did this, played the like I'm not racist card. This is definitely racially driven, whether it's from an actual racist perspective or a fetishism perspective. No matter what, race is involved in this situation, and there's certainly a lack of personal accountability there. But this is the existence of being a woman in this era. It is feeling like you have a target on your back. It is feeling vulnerable and exposed no matter where you are. And there isn't an easy remedy for it. There isn't, even if you're going and taking self defense courses or you're carrying some sort of form of personal protection on you, there is this. I'm trying to find a good way to word it, the potential for victimization. And it makes me angry for us. And I recognize it. It shows up in the weirdest little ways for me. When I run Facebook ads that have my face on it and I get sleazy fucking perverts who get in there and comment and they say shitty things and they're making passes at me and they're jumping in my DMs. Not only is this a business account that I now have to deal with, but because I've paid for a Facebook ad, I am paying for the opportunity to be harassed. And that would not happen if I was a man. It is hard to witness this, to understand it, and also to have an empathic heart where even though you're witnessing it and understanding it like intellectually, but you're also feeling it. And you're feeling the intent, and then you're feeling your own response. And I know that my response will be somewhat disproportionate because it's also being experienced through the filter of my trauma. Like, I get that. But I also believe that people, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of sexual orientation, should be free to live their fucking lives. Like, it shouldn't even be a question. So last night I went to bed thinking about these people that lost their lives in Atlanta. And I was also on TikTok, and there have been a number of cases in Vancouver right now of women turning up dead, of women being stalked and harassed. And to know that this is the existence of being a woman at this time is maddening. So maddening that I actually had really horrific nightmares. I almost never dream. And when I do, like, I maybe have one nightmare a year. And I had a really violent nightmare last night, where I was also like not just victimized, but witnessing victimization around me and feeling really powerless and helpless. And so in my book, Sacred Anger, I talk about anger being a mask for things. And so when I sat down with my anger today and I looked at the many layers of it and how it's expressing itself in these different fashions and how pissed off I'm getting, what I realized is that it's not so much that it's just anger, although I am angry. It is also the powerlessness that comes from feeling like you can't just be safe in the world. And it's really hard in this situation because oftentimes there are things that you can use to channel your anger, where you can find an outlet for it, where you can use it as fuel, put it to work for you. And in those cases, you don't feel powerless because there is something that you can do with it. But I'm sitting with this information and these feelings, and I know that aside from just becoming a recluse and Howard Hughesing myself in the house, is that his name? Howard Hughes? Howard, whatever. The guy who didn't leave his house. Um, aside from not leaving my home, that's just not an option. And not leaving my home ever, despite it being a pandemic, isn't an option either. So then what do you do with this? And that's the space that I'm in right now, to be honest. Normally, I like to figure this shit out and then come to you and have a conversation about it and tell you what I've learned and what I've figured out, and I'm in it. And I wouldn't normally share when I'm in it because I'm not always the most constructive in this space. But this is the honesty. Um, you know, I like to be really honest about what it means to live a spiritual life, what it means to be conscious and aware of your energy and what you're connecting with and what you're putting out in the world and how you're engaging, how you're showing up and looking at your shadows and all of it. To the point where it is sometimes really exhausting to be me. I'm not going to lie. And I like to be transparent about that because not enough people are having this conversation. So then when other people are on their journeys, or if they're new to their journey and they're hitting like a rough patch where they start to question if they're doing it wrong, or if they're unworthy, or if something is like wrong with them as people, and there isn't. It's just that not enough people are talking about what it's like to be in the shits. And so I'm in them right now. It's making me defensive. It's making me really grumpy. And like, that's not who I am. That's not how I show up in the world. But it is hard to be in a place of feeling powerless, of feeling unsafe, especially if you do inner child work and you've been working with those injured parts of yourself that didn't feel safe or protected. To live that as an adult when you're supposed to be, sorry, I just hit my mic, where you're supposed to have agency, where you're supposed to have say so, where you're supposed to be in charge of how you connect with the world, and how you have impact and how it impacts you, how you relate to things. And I know that that's not necessarily true. And that's a hard truth to swallow. So unfortunately, I didn't come in here with any resolutions. I haven't worked this out. I don't know how to channel my rage. I am just having to be with it. And I think sometimes that's the first step. That's the part that we want to avoid, because the anger is uncomfortable. And when you dig in and you see what things are underneath it, like the feeling of powerlessness to the point where it's showing up in my dreams, which means it's really big, that is not fun to be with. And a lot of light workers will tell you that, having these conversations is low vibe. The anger as an emotion, as an energy is low vibe. It's not low vibe. It is essential because we can't do true light work if we are not also looking at our shadows, if we are not exploring them and leaning into the discomfort, because that is where the growth happens. So while I don't have an answer for you now, and I may not ever, I will tell you that this is work I'm actively doing. And you might find yourself in this place too. It is hard to feel vulnerable in the world for whatever reason. And and I speak particularly as a woman because that is my lived experience. But everybody's got their thing. And we need to be willing to feel what is in that space. We need to be willing to let it be ugly, uncomfortable, and awkward. We need to be honest about how we're feeling instead of just saying like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll just stay high vibe and then nothing bad will happen to me." Well, that's really fucking great. But like, what if you catch the flu? What if, you get some bad news? What if it's raining on a day that you just kind of need some sunshine? You know, low vibes. I use air quotes here in an almost nasty way. Low vibes can happen to anyone. The second you let your guard down, and being human means you can't be on and guarded up all the time. So, for now, let's leave it at this. Let's take care of each other. When you see injustice happen, when you see people who are feeling unsafe, take them in. The video that I saw yesterday, the woman sat down with this group of youths and she said, "Hey, this guy's been following me for half an hour. Do you mind if I sit here for a minute?" If it's safe, be the one to speak up if you feel comfortable to and it's safe to do so. We need to address these things from the root. We need safety, personal safety, to be a basic human right. And it's not unreasonable to expect that or want that or desire it. It is a necessity. No matter who you are, you should be able to carry yourself in the world without fear of personal harm. So let's take care of each other. Let's speak up about injustice. Let's ask for help when we are the ones that are feeling unsafe. And when the anger creeps in, because it will, let's not shy away from it. Let's try to be in that space and see what it can teach us and show us how to redirect the anger into something that can fuel some positive change in the world. Those are my 2 cents for tonight, for today. I hope this message finds you well. We'll talk again on Monday. Take care.